So I'm not going to lie, I almost forgot to do the preview in terms of match week number 23, looking at the 9 games that's going to be happening this weekend. And yes, we do have MLS games that's going to be happening on international break, and whether you like it or not, it is the way it is. And unfortunately for these 18 teams, they will have to play during the international break, and they also are going to lose a lot of their key players because a lot of their key players are probably on international duty. But that being said, it does create a little bit of an interesting twist in terms of some of these games, and I won't be surprised there could be some upsets that we could see in this game. Consider the fact that maybe we see some games where even though a team might be heavy favorites against the opponent and you basically took out some of their starters, and all of a sudden the game might not actually be as one-sided as you think it could be. So yeah, like I said, there could be definitely some upsets that can happen into this weekend's action. But let us actually begin talking about the first of 4 games that's going to be happening on Friday. And you know, the good thing about this week is that not only the fact that there isn't actually going to be just 13 games that's going to happen, but the fact that it's also going to be evenly played, where there's going to be 4 games tomorrow and 5 that's going to be on Saturday. But the problem is, tomorrow I will be working from 12 to 8:30, so most likely I'm going to miss most of those games and probably only catch like the last 30 minutes of the last game between LAFC versus Sporting KC. So we start off with Nashville SC taking on NYCFC, as this game will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 6:38 p.m. local time. Nashville, of course, have an 8-11-2 record, and they have yet to lose at home so far this season, while NYCFC coming into this game with a 10-4-6 record, and they won 2-0 against New England at home, which was definitely a big statement because not a lot of teams have been able to take down the Revs this season, especially of how hot the Revs have been in these last couple of months. Now, in terms of players on international duty, well, unfortunately for both of these teams, they're pretty much 2 teams that are hit the hardest in terms of players missing because of international duty. For Nashville, they're not going to have Anibal Godoy, Alistair Johnson, Randall Leao, and Walker Zimmerman in their roster, whereas NYCFC, they're not going to have Callan, Chanel, Sands, and Forensen coming into this game. So, yeah, you know, both of these teams are going to miss some key starters coming in, but if you ask me who potentially might actually miss the most important starters coming out of this game, who desperately needs some of their players that is currently on international duty and wish that they have them here, it's definitely going to be Nashville SC. I mean, even though I know NYCFC pretty much have their entire back line pretty much going to be missing because of international duty, at least, you know, they do still have some good attacking talent with the likes of Tati Castellanos and Maxi Morales there, whereas for Nashville, you know, it's a mixture of their defense and attack that is going to be missing, and it's going to be a tall task for them to, of course, get a win in this game against NYCFC. And as I mentioned before, for Nashville, you know, with the way that they have so few games left at home for the rest of the season, it is massive that they get all 3 points in some of these games, and they cannot afford to drop more points at home if they want to get themselves near the top 4 spot in the Eastern Conference. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is the Union versus New England. So this game will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. The Union, of course, have a record of 8-8-6, while the Revs have a record of 15-4-4. The Union, of course, lost 3-1 on the road to DC United, while New England, they lost for the first time in 10 games, losing 2-0 to NYCFC away, as I mentioned. Player on international duty, well, for the Union, you know, if I talk about how Nashville and NYCFC are probably the hardest hit team in terms of missing guys on international duty, well, the Union want to challenge that. And they probably would have the case that they are the hardest team that are going to be hit for international duty, because basically what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they have 7 guys that are going to be missing on international duty, and you could say 6 of them are actually starters for this team. You know, you start off with their goalkeeper, Andre Blake, not available in this game. One of their star striker, Corey Burke, not available in this game. Daniel Gasbeck, not available in this game. Jose Martinez, their star-studded defensive midfield, not available in this game. Same with Montero, Bizo, and Powell. Yeah, I mean, that is a huge chunk of this team that they're going to lose, or a huge chunk of a team that they're going to lose because of international duty. But the good news is that does gives a chance for the Union to bring some of their kids to play in this game against New England. And, I'm obviously going to be excited to see that happen because, I know the Union, as I said before, they have probably the best academy in MLS. And, I think this season, the kids haven't really gotten as much chances I thought Jim Kern would give them this season. But this is a great opportunity for Jim Kern to pretty much play the kids, knowing the fact that they basically are almost missing half of their starters. But it's not going to be easy because they have to play against a Revs team who, the Revs, they also have some big name player that is going to be missing on international duty. Obviously, one of their star striker, Adam Buksa, now available in this game because he's with Poland for the Euro World Cup qualifier. And then they, of course, lose their star goalkeeper in Matt Turner with the U.S. And then, of course, Tajon Buchanan, who not only they lose for international duty, but they might actually lost him at least for the end of the season because he is going to be going on loan right now. So, yeah, for the Revs, they're also going to be missing some key players in this team, but it's not too much as a way where it's like the Union where they're missing literally half of the team and are kind of forced to play their kids. But, yeah, this should be a game that is going to be interesting to see, and I still think the Revs are probably going to be the favorites coming into this, and they definitely want to bounce back after that tough loss that they suffer on the road. And I'm also going to be interested to see will they do so, because like I said, when you're a team that have won pretty much every single game for a very long time and you finally suffer your first loss in a very long time, it can be very tough to try to bounce back because you never had that to deal with that up until now that New England has to deal with right now coming off of a loss. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is the Houston Dynamo versus the Portland Timbers, which starts at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:08 p.m. local time. Well, for the Dynamo, I think the only good news, besides the fact that they are winless in 15 games, is that they finally did something that a lot of their fans want to do for a very long time, and that, of course, is their GM, Matt Jordan, to finally get fired, and it just happened in this weekend where they found out that he finally have been let go of this organization. And maybe that's kind of a small morale victory, knowing the fact that the Dynamo fans have been very unhappy in terms of the front office, and clearly they feel like there's still some bad apples that needs to be cleaned out in that front office. And it's also getting to a point where I talk about how the Dynamo are pretty much that team that is in see you next season mode, and really they kind of don't care the fact that they could go winless through the end of the season, but as long as if they get rid of some of the old regime that is holding this team back, then that might be considered a win for them. And when that happens, when an organization is in absolute disarray. But they're going to be playing against a Timber side that they come out of a big and much needed 2-0 victory against the Seattle Sounders on the road. In terms of players on international duty, well, for the Dynamo, despite being bad, they still have a lot of guys that is going to be missing on international duty. You got Carrasquilla, Seren Figueroa, Bonet Garcia, and Ariel Lassiter all out in this game because of international duty. Now, for the Portland Timbers, they're actually one of the two teams that I'm going to talk about in this preview that actually have nobody missing on international duty. Now, keep in mind, I got all the information of players missing on international duty on the league website, and I'm not quite sure exactly if that's completely accurate. There might be some last-minute change that maybe the league did not report, and therefore maybe there are guys on this board where I wrote players on international duty that I didn't write here on the board, but indeed he is on international duty. But as of now, it seems like there's going to be nobody that is going to be missing on international duty for the Portland Timbers. And, let's see if the Timbers can carry that momentum that they had again in that Cascadia win. And you would assume they should be able to get this win. I mean, you obviously don't want to be that team to lose to a team that have gone on a long winless run. And, the Timbers, the only thing that I am a little bit concerned is that, when they do play against bad teams, and especially when I've seen this team before where you would think that they play against a bad team and it's an automatic victory, and guess what happened? They tend to find a way to lose. So, I think Timbers fans shouldn't be 100% confident that they should get an easy win in this game against the Dynamo, even though if the Dynamo are just are in a tailspin right now and are just in an unbelievable winless run that they just cannot seem to get out of. But now moving on in terms of the next match. Speaking of team that is in a unbelievable long winless run and are heading into the wrong direction in terms of trying to get themselves out of the tailspin, is LAFC, who is winless in the last 8 games, and despite the fact that they did drew 3-3 against the Galaxy and probably play one of their best game in the recent stretch, they're still winless in the last 8 games, and it's not going to be easy to try to snap out of that winless run because they're going to be playing against SKC, who, believe it or not, they're actually not doing as well as you think it is. I mean, I know SKC is currently second in the Western Conference, but they have struggled in the last 5 games, only winning 1 out of their last 5 games, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that they have been having that problem of conceding early goals and have to find themselves behind the 8 ball all the time and trying to chase the game, which, as I said, they've done a great job in terms of trying to come from behind and get draws and get wins throughout the season. But it's also getting into a time where especially these last couple of resort, whenever they go down early, they've only been able to salvage a draw, whereas earlier in the season they would actually come all the way back and get all 3 points. Now that being said, they still have a good record at 11-7 or 11-7-4, as this game will start at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:08 p.m. local time. And unfortunately, this is one of the free games that is going to be on Twitter. And yeah, I mean, if you did, it's kind of disappointing, the fact that I think throughout this week, the only national televised game is actually going to be on Twitter. But for me, I don't even count Twitter as a national televised game. Consider how bad their feed is, and unfortunately, I will have to deal with that. And especially now that there's another thing I hate about Twitter, where whenever a game is on Twitter, MLS don't release the condensed version until a couple of days later. So basically, this kind of forced me to pretty much watch the whole game, or maybe watch like the quick like 7 minutes highlights of some of this game. And I kind of don't want to just watch the quick 7 minutes highlight. Consider I could expect this could maybe be a very entertaining game. Now that being said, for LAFC, even though I they might be hoping that they can come off with that strong attacking performance against LAFC, the problem is they're going to be missing some guys, and especially missing the guy that was the reason why they were able to look very well going forward on their attack. And that guy is Brian Rodriguez, who's not available in this game because of international duty with Uruguay, alongside with Palacio, Kim Moon Kwan, and Jose Cifuentes in that midfield. For SKC, they're also going to lose some key players. They're going to lose Gadi Kinda and Daniel Shawi. They're not going to lose Polito to international duty, which I'm kind of surprised, because I thought he got called up by El Tri during the World Cup qualifier, but apparently the league website didn't say that. So they're gonna have Polito in this game, which is definitely a bit of a surprise, but in some way a welcoming sight if you're an SKC fan, because one of the frustrating thing if you're an SKC fan is the fact that Polito is not. Oh wait, no, never mind. I forgot Polito is actually injured for SKC right now. Maybe that's the reason why he hasn't been called up with El Tri, because he's been on the IR list. But nevertheless, coming into this game, I mean, this is a big game for both of these teams, and I think it's a bigger game for LAFC, where, yeah, this has started to slip away with this winless run that they've gone in, and if they cannot find a way to get out of this winless run, this team has the impossible kind of thing that we never thought it would happen in the beginning of the season, but they actually might miss the playoffs. And as I said, if they do miss the playoffs, this would be considered a huge failure of a season, and I would think that there could be some changes in the team. And one of those changes in terms of sort of higher up, or maybe in this LAFC team, is Bob Bradley. I know people I talked about before in the beginning of the season, maybe Bob Bradley is not going to go anywhere with LAFC, but then when I realized that his contract is up this year, yeah, maybe not. Let's just say that with how things have gone, there is definitely going to be a big question. And I think the longer this team struggle, and the longer, if there is no talks of Bob Bradley potentially extending his contract, there could be a case where LAFC might have a coaching change heading into this off season. And this is something I definitely did not see it coming, especially in the beginning of the season, where I didn't think LAFC was going to go through this bad of a run, and there could be potentially facing a coaching change in the off season. But now, moving on, in terms of the next match, and now looking at the first of 5 games that's going to be happening on Saturday, is the red-hot Vancouver Whitecaps versus Austin FC, which will kick off at 6 p.m., or not 6 p.m., but it will start at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is a late afternoon, 4:08 p.m. local time start at BC Place. All the Whitecaps, as I mentioned, they are red-hot because they're unbeaten in the last 9 games, and they have a record of 6-8-7, and they are definitely knocking on the door in terms of trying to get themselves above the red line, being the first team looking outside in the playoff picture in the Western Conference. Whereas for Austin FC, well, they are pretty close into that see you next season mode, and the we're pretty much done in terms of this season, as they're currently sitting near the bottom of the Western Conference with 5-4-12 record, and they have lost 5-3 against FC Dallas at home, which I I think that might be a game that might be the one that they pretty much lost some hope, and if not all hope, that they can potentially get themselves back into playoff contention. Now, for the Whitecaps, they are going to lose a couple of guys on international duty. You got Brown, Cavallini, and most importantly, their starting goalkeeper, Maxime Crépeau, currently with Canada for World Cup qualifier duty. While for Austin FC, as I mentioned, they're one of the 2 teams alongside with the Timbers that actually have no players that is missing on international duty, but that also kind of just tells you how Austin is not having a great season when you have, usually when teams that don't have players that are missing on international duty, most likely the team that you have, unless you got very lucky out, a lot of these players are not usually players that have qualified their national team. You're probably not a good team, and it's no surprise that Austin FC is that kind of team that is not doing well this season. And the problem that Austin is having now, right, is basically they're having problem to keep the goals from preventing from ending up in the back of their own net, and they concede a ton of goals in these last couple of games, and it's not going to be easy when they have to face a Whitecaps team that have also been red hot on the attack in the last couple of games. In fact, I think in the last game they of course scored 4 goals against RSL, and then in the previous one I think they scored 2 goals against LAFC. But when you look at this attack, it is a very dynamic attack right now, and it's one that I think this might be the scariest Whitecaps attack I have seen so far doing this deep rebuild that they've gone through. But now moving on into the next match is going to be Orlando versus Columbus. So this game will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. Orlando, of course, is unbeaten in the last 6 games with a 9-8-4 record, while Columbus, they have a record of 7-6-9 and finally snap out of that 6-game losing streak to win 3-2 against FC Cincinnati. Player on international duty for both teams. They're going to miss 2 players. For Orlando, they're unable going to have their starting goalkeeper Pedro Galese, who's currently with Peru for a World Cup qualifier, and then they also will not have Sebastian Mendez. Then for Columbus, they actually are only going to be losing Liam Fraser and Jonathan Mensah in terms of player that is going to be on international duty. But yeah, this is a game where I feel like for Columbus, this is definitely a big game for them, because they want to prove that game against Cincinnati wasn't just a fluke. The fact that they got lucky, the fact that Cincinnati kind of gifted them the 2 goals, or shall I say, Kenneth Vermeer kind of gifted Columbus the 2 goals and able to win that Hell is Real derby. But let's see if they can maybe get their season back up track, where they're going to be facing against an Orlando team that, even though they're second in the Eastern Conference right now, and even though they're unbeaten in the last 6 games, I know Orlando fans are kind of a little bit concerned of the fact that this team has really struggled to score goals lately. I mean, during the month of August, they have never scored never had a game that they have scored more than 1 goal. And when you have games after game where you only been able to score one goal and no more than that, that could be a huge issue heading down the playoff stretch. And that, this is a team that they need to really start to find a way to score more goals. Even though I know this is a team that has a really good defense, and it's a team that doesn't concede a lot of goals. But now moving on, or shall I say, now I'm gonna switch the boards because that's actually the last game on this board. But once I switch boards, I'll look at the next game, which is FC Cincinnati versus Inter Miami. So as I said, the next game we're gonna look at is FC Cincinnati versus Inter Miami, which will start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 8:08 p.m. local time. FC Cincinnati, of course, they're another one of those teams that is kind of like in see you next season mode, as they have now gone winless in the last 11 games and have a record of 3-8-9. And not only the fact that they're in see you next season mode, but they're also in a mode where they're trying to prevent them to not win the win spoon for the third year in a row. And they're about to play against an Inter Miami team, which, if you remember the last time when Cincinnati played against Inter Miami, that was the first ever game at TQL Stadium, and that was a game that kind of also summarized FC Cincinnati's season, where just as you thought that they can maybe get off to a great start, they're in their first ever home game in their brand new building by going up 2-0. That it base things kind of collapsed. Or actually, no, they didn't go up 2-0 in that game. They actually went down 2-0 in that game, and just as you thought that they had a feel-good story of coming back from 2-0, they had that false hope and immediately was crushed with Inter Miami scoring that third goal to win 3-2. And Inter Miami is looking to maybe try to do something similar to that, and especially trying to get another win against Cincinnati. And they have a chance to do so because they have been red hot in their last 8 games. Only 1 loss in their last 8 games to get themselves a record of 6-5-9. Now, players on international duty for Cincinnati, you got Roland Motorita unavailable for them heading into this game. And for Inter Miami, only Rodolfo Pizarro that is going to be on international duty. Now, it was going to be Robbie Robinson, but I feel sorry for Robbie Robinson. And anytime when you're a player, and this is always something that is difficult for a player whenever you have to choose which team that you represent, and especially if you have a parent that maybe have like a father that is a different nationality than your mother, it could be tough to choose which nationality to represent. And we heard about Robbie Robinson decided to represent the nationality of his mother, which is in Chile, or not Chile, but Chile. I gotta pronounce that correctly, because if I pronounce it Chile, those Chilean is gonna be very mad at me, just like what they did to Robbie Robinson. But yeah, those Chilean was not happy whatsoever that Robbie Robinson was representing their country, because they don't feel like he's Chilean at any part, and they even gone as far as putting some very hateful comments toward him. And again, this is, I just really hate when people, of course, do that. And I'm not really gonna go deep into that rabbit hole, because I know for a fact that I remember I did a video similar to kind of criticize a national team fan base, to talk about how they handled the situation wrong. They immediately they said some negative things in the comment section below, and basically put a lot of down votes. But all I'll just say is it's just terrible to see some country that, when they, instead of maybe fully embrace of able to having a very talented player to join their team, instead they decide to insult them by saying, you might be joining our country, but you are not welcome whatsoever, because you look nothing like the country that we represent, and you don't know anything about the culture. So yeah, I definitely feel for Robbie Robinson, and I won't be surprised if he decided to maybe change his mind now and represent the U.S. instead of represent Chile. But that being said, moving back to this game, we'll see whether or not if Inter Miami can continue this hot streak And we'll also wonder, is this finally the game where FC Cincinnati can finally get their first ever win at TQL Stadium? But now moving on into the next match is going to be RSL versus FC Dallas. So anytime when there is a matchup where it's between teams that is in that kind of logjam between 6 through 11 place in the Western Conference, where that's only separated by 3 points, and it seems like there's 3 teams right now, or actually no, 4 teams right now that is fighting for those 2 playoff spot, and I'm very eager to see whether or not if that's going to continue down the stretch. And if it does continue, boy oh boy, we're going to have a very cracking kind of playoff race down the stretch in the Western Conference. But we got 2 teams that with one of them is currently above the red line, that is RSL, but they're barely above the red line in 7th place with a 7-6-8 record. And in the last game, yeah, you definitely saw that you know, not only the fact that they did not get the new interim head coach boost, but in some way it's kind of feel like they were shocked the fact that you know, they found out Freddy Quares left them, and you can definitely see that the team just kind of looked dejected in that game against the Whitecaps and lost 4-1 in that one. Whereas for Dallas, they kind of had the opposite fortune in terms of the away game, as they were able to win 5-3 against Austin FC in that Copa Tias matchup, and now have a record of 6-7-9, and I think they're currently in 10th place in the Western Conference. This game will start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 6:08 p.m. local time, and unfortunately, this is the second game that is going to be happening on Twitter. In fact, this is actually going to be the first of a doubleheader that's going to be happening in terms of the late Saturday action that is going to be on Twitter. Now, in terms of players missing on international duty for both of these teams, for RSL, only player that's going to be missing is Justin Merrim. But for FC Dallas, they definitely have a couple of key players that is going to be missing on international duty. Guys like, or not Kellen Acosta, Brian Acosta. Kellen Acosta is no longer with Dallas, isn't it? He's now with Colorado. But Brian Acosta is not going to be available in this game. But probably the most important player is Ricardo Pepi. And, you know, that is definitely not just a huge loss for Dallas, but that is going to be the one that is going to hurt the most for this team, because so far this season, at least for most of the success that Dallas has had, is mainly because Ricardo Pepi has really it sent them to be a playoff contender. I mean, you could definitely say that if Dallas did not have Pepi, and if Ricardo Pepi did not become the guy that is really right now the hottest prospect in MLS, that is an American-based player, yeah, you know, this team probably would be stuck with what they were in the beginning of the season, which is near the bottom of the Western Conference. But we'll see whether or not if they can maybe overcome in this game against RSL. But other players that's not available is Schum and Vargas. So yeah, let's see. As I said, you know, we'll see whether or not if FC Dallas is going to overcome the fact that they lose a couple of big players on this team for this game against RSL. But that also being said, you know, knowing the fact that they have not have a very good road record, and yes, I know they're coming off of a big win against Austin FC, but when you look at their road record, it's still not very good, and definitely not good enough to maybe make it to the playoffs, unless if they can, of course, start to not drop more points at home, which is another reason why they have find themselves in the spot that they have, is that they drop way too many points at home, and they also unable to get wins at home. But moving on into the next match, or actually, what I meant was they actually have dropped a lot of points at home, but also cannot get points on the road. But now moving on into the last match, and again, I know it's late, and my mind is starting to kind of checked out a little bit, but thank goodness we're now talking about the last game that is on this board, which is the game that I'm going to be attending for this week, which is the San Jose Earthquakes versus the Colorado Rapids, as this game will start at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:08 p.m. local time. For the Quakes, they, of course, have the league longest unbeaten run at 10 games right now, while the Colorado Rapids also have a relatively long unbeaten run at 6 games to get their record to 11-5-4, while the Quakes have a record of 6-8-7. This game, of course, will start at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:08 p.m. local time. And like I said, this is unfortunately going to be the second game of the doubleheader that's going to be happening on Twitter. In terms of players that is going to be missing on international duty, only player for the Quakes that's going to be missing on international duty is Marcos Lopez. And while that is definitely going to be a bit of a loss in terms of the fullback position, I don't think it's that big of a loss where I think most likely either Abikesi or Tommy Thompson is going to fill into that spot that Marcos Lopez currently occupies and are not going to be playing this game because he's going to be missing on international duty. Whereas for the Colorado Rapids, they do have a couple of players that are missing on international duty. That is Kellen Costa and Mark-Anthony Kaye, and those are definitely some big losses for this Rapids team because those two players have done very well so far for their team, especially for Mark-Anthony Kaye, where it just feels like ever since he has arrived with the Rapids, he has looked the old Mark-Anthony Kaye that we know of during his day with LAFC. And I've just said before, I really love the trade that the Rapids, of course, got for Mark-Anthony Kaye. And I know even though LAFC fans said that, he has not been looking in good whatsoever this season, and he has really got relegated to bench duty. Well, maybe he's not very good because of the fact that, he might need a change of scenery. And we've seen this so many times. When guys fell out of favor with a team and they get a change of scenery to another team, they immediately excel. And we're seeing it once again with Mark-Anthony Kaye doing very well with the Colorado Rapids. And overall, when you also look at this matchup, this is definitely going to be an interesting matchup. And for the Quakes, I talk about how they have this incredible unbeaten run. Well, this is going to be the game that could put it to the ultimate test. Because, this is a Rapids team that is a really dangerous team. And even though I know the Quakes also have a relatively good record against the Rapids, I mean, it's been a very long time since the Quakes have lost to the Rapids at home. But if there is a time that it could happen, it could be this game, especially with how dangerous the Rapids could be, and especially on the attack. But we shall see whether or not if their unbeaten run is going to continue and able to keep up pace with some of the teams that or not just some of the teams, but a lot of teams that is fighting for those two crucial spots in the Western Conference playoff race. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of my preview of looking at these 9 games that's going to be happening tomorrow and also on Saturday. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of these 9 games, and as always, let me know in the comments your prediction for these 9 games that's going to be happening in terms of match week number 23. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and I, of course, will see you guys next time.